Hi, and welcome to another episode of Furuno Connections. I'm Clayton Pattison with technical support.
And I'm Eric Kunz, Senior Product Manager.
And today we're talking about fishing. Deep water Pacific Ocean fishing. You know, Team Fortunate, they fish a lot of tournaments. So they fish the Oregon Tuna Classic, the Washington Tuna Classic, even the Women's Salmon Slayer Tournament.
Well, they also fish some tournaments down in Costa Rica, so
yeah, they got a full dance card.
Their dance card is full.
But anyway, we have Matt Rowland with us today to talk to us a little bit about his existing system, how they use it, and what they're looking for in the new system.
Let's go talk to Matt.
Okay, so let's talk fish finders. We talked about radar, let's talk about sounders. So I would say a lot of people probably don't assume or know what goes into fishing. They assume it's, you know, put a worm on a hook and throw it overboard and magically fish are going to jump in the boat.
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
No, I wish it was that easy.
Don't we all?
That's why
right?
they call it fishing instead of catching,
Exactly.
right? Exactly.
So there's a lot of aspects and things that go into being an effective, you know, tournament boat and being able to catch this stuff and win tournaments. You know, you guys have done it a couple of times, won a few tournaments. So give us a rundown of, you know, how you guys use the equipment and what all goes into it.
Right.
You know.
So I'd say the biggest aspect of tuna fishing is finding fish. You know, a lot of guys, in the time constraint in a tournament, you know, you're down to an 8-hour day by the time you get out there. Right. The biggest thing guys are doing now is trolling to find fish, and to fish or eat. You know, they come up, it's a cycle. They come up, they eat, go back down, they rest, they come back up, they eat. So if a guy can find them on their sonar at depth and bring those fish to the boat and make them eat,
yeah, that's huge.
That's the way it works, right?
Exactly,
And the more fish you catch, the more fish you have to sample from, and that's how you win tournaments.
And that's the great thing about the combination of products we have on the boat right now.
Yeah.
You know, we've gone to a DFF3, which is a thumper, you know, high power depth
big,
sounder, dual frequency.
Deep water.
It's frequency agile, so we can dial it in to exactly what these chirp transducers, these mid-frequency and these low-frequency chirp transducers want, and we can even tweak the frequency a little bit depending on the species we're going for. Albacore are bigger, so we can use a little bit lower frequency and still thump them really hard in deep water, find out where they are, chum when we're ready, bring them up, and then that's where the DFF3D comes in because of the wide beam. We can see if they're in a chum slick over here versus over here, and we can dial that in. That 120-degree wide swath will pinpoint where those fish are under the boat, depending on what's happening with ocean currents and where the chum is actually kind of trailing off to.
Yeah.
And you can use that to dial it in and bring the fish right underneath the boat.
Yeah, if they're anywhere in the beam, you're going to see them.
Exactly.
Anywhere near the boat.
And when albacore are hitting, it gets crazy. I know, which is really, it gets absolutely crazy. So that's actually that's what we're going for, and that's what the complete package and the the different products that we've combined together complement each other to be able to do exactly that. I'm getting ready to install the DFF3 processor unit, but while I'm doing that, let's go over to Tim and Jack Carlson to see how they're using the DFF3 on the Marathon hump for deep dropping.
So Captain Jack, as you know, the TZtouch offers so many possibilities for sounder, whether you're using the internal 1kW sounder, a DFF1 UHD True Echo Chirp, DFF3, or DFF3D. I noticed that you chose the DFF3 and DFF3D for your boat. Why'd you do that?
Well, down here in the Florida Keys, we have so many options, from fishing inshore to offshore, shallow water, deep water, you name it, we do it. So by having both options gives me that much more advantage on catching fish.
Okay, so primarily you're using the DFF3D when you're in the shallower portions of the Gulf versus the DFF3 when you're deeper?
Absolutely. Well, the DFF3 has a great picture, marks the fish, and now actually with the new white line on there, I can easily see the fish much better. One of my favorite features is looking up the history. As I just turned around, I saw a bunch of fish leaving, but I want to see it. I can stop it and come back, actually see the ball of fish, and mark it right there. Right here, this mark is where we just saved our fish that we found on our last drift. And I come back across, and here they are again. So I know I'm gonna be in the right zone, another drift.
One of the questions we get asked a lot is how well the DFF3 tracks bottom, especially like I saw we were just in 500 feet of water, now we're down to 1,100 feet. So how well does the DFF3 do at following the bottom?
Oh, it actually works great. You know, as we drift across the hump, you're gonna see it fall down here, and you're gonna see the little jagged edges on the back side of the hump.
I know you're looking for a bunch of different species out here, and today we're looking at a blackfin tuna. But with the DFF3 having 1, 2, or 3,000 watts of power, have you ever found any place that you can't find bottom or you can't find the species of fish you're looking for?
No, Tim. I've always found bottom with it, whether I'm fishing for swordfish in 1,800 plus feet or even in the 800, 900 feet for your snowy groupers. You never lose bottom with that.
That's awesome. So we got all the bases covered.
Everything. Still marking some, about 125 feet down there. We're gonna come up here, some at 200. So we're still in the zone. The further you go up, if you mark the fish, and the further you keep going up, it'll give you more drops as opposed to just being able to drop 2 or 3 times over the hump, end up on the back side where you gotta come back around. If you start up higher, you're gonna end up with a good 5 or 6 drops and yield more tuna per drift.
As you can see, I got some work to do here, so back to you guys in Washington.
So we've got the DFF3 processor unit mounted in the console behind me and the wires run into the box. Now we're going to connect up the transducer cables and make sure that the power settings are correct for this 2 kilowatt transducer. So this is the DFF3 processor unit mounted behind these autopilot hydraulic hoses. And what we're going to do is connect up the transducer. You can see I have the cover off, but the wiring diagram is on the cover of the DFF3. So the wiring diagram is important because that way I can see which terminals I have to hook up this dual frequency transducer. And you can see that there's an HF side and an LF side. And that corresponds to the HF side and the LF side here. And you can see that terminals 1, 2, and 3 are the transducer for the high frequency connections, and terminals 1, 2, and 3 on this connector are for the low frequency. Now, Clayton knows that Airmar has these wires color-coded based on the transducer. And Clayton, is it that the low frequency side is always the solid color?
No. So what they'll do is they'll color code the both frequencies as blue and black, but what they'll do so you can differentiate them between which one is high and low is they'll put a white tracer on one pair. So you'll have a solid blue and a solid black, and then a blue with a white tracer and a black with a white tracer.
And that's on this connector.
Yeah, the white tracer pair is always the low frequency. So whether you have a medium or a high, it's going to be the solid pair.
Okay, so the low frequency side is going to be this side, and that corresponds to this this terminal right here, 1, 2, and 3. You can see I've already pre-wired that right here, 1, 2, and 3.
Yep, perfect.
Here, and that just plugs in.
Okay, so that one's done.
So that one's done. And I left this one off just to show you how the Wago tool works. If I unplug the high frequency side and take the Wago tool, which is right here, and you can see how there's a little hook on the Wago tool and a little hook on the top of this connector.
Each of these boxes come with this tool.
Yes, this tool is actually provided
right
right
in
in
that
there.
little clamp right there.
It'll
So
come right in
make
there like
sure-
that, and you pop it out,
Yep.
and you insert it into here with the connector off. And once I do that, you can see how it kind of hooks in, and it's spring loaded. So I have to kind of push this spring in so that it opens up the connector. And when I do that, I can then, when the connector's open, when I'm squeezing it, I can insert this and then let it pop out. And that's how the proper connection is made. Also, make sure that you have this shield, as I showed you in the DFF3D video, where the shield is actually clamped properly and grounded into the chassis
That's an
of the
important
DFF3. Yes.
That's
If
a
you
really
don't do that, we could have noise spikes and other kinds of weird noise on the display that will that come into play.
Yeah,
but when you shield it and when you secure the shields, that eliminates that possibility.
People underestimate how important that shield wire is and how prevalent electrical interference and noise can be if you don't do it right.
And we put our Wago tool back in this little secure area. Done.
and then we can reassemble the unit. And the other thing we will do is we will set the tap settings for the DFF3 processor unit, and that changes the power output depending on the transducer that's connected. In this case, we have 2 kilowatt transducers, so we're going to use C and C for the HF and the low frequency taps, high frequency and low frequency taps. Those are done right here. So if I pull these out,
now keep in mind that these tap settings apply to
and you use the same Wago tool. So I would use the same Wago tool to specific, and Clayton's right. We have to select the proper taps based on the proper transducer to get the maximum power out of it. And I would just typically change only, leave the number 1 in place, or this one in place, and change from A, B, C, D, E, and it would be on this side.
Yeah, each
so
transducer
pop
has
that
its own
open.
tap settings.
Exactly. Pop that open with the Wago tool and go to C on this one. And you'll see how that just opens up, and I can put my wire back in there and then reconnect the connector. So that's in, and I would do the same thing for the low frequency side. So now that the power output is set for 2 kilowatts each, we can put this back together. We're done.
So that means that this thing is ready to go.
We're ready to go with this system, yes.
Perfect.
All right. We can just go ahead and drop this cover back on here.
We're making this work, even though
Good
it's
to go.
awfully tight in here.
Yeah, so it's a little tight in here, but we can get this DFF3 around here like this. Move these cables.
So when it comes to deep water fishing, the DFF3 really gives you the flexibility on frequency and power to really pinpoint exactly what you're looking for in the water column.
But the nice thing is that DFF3 is only half of the acoustic fishing package we're putting on this 39
That's right.
CV. The DFF3D is the other half. And the DFF3D is a multi-beam sonar that's a 120-degree fan beam that gives us the capability to scan side to side. So once we use the DFF3 to punch down and look for tuna deep in the water column, we set out some chum, we start bringing them up. Once they start coming up, we can actually pinpoint them with the DFF3D to find out exactly where they are. In fact, stay tuned with us for the next episode where we take a deep look at the DFF3D multi-beam sonar.
So thanks for watching, and if you like the exciting content that you've seen, click the link below to like the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you'll be the first one to know when we have new content available with new product information and new exciting stuff from Furuno.